What happened?
I think at some point, the president of El Salvador realized it was looking really bad to have this person who'd been.
I'm telling you, dude, this only happened because Van Hollen pressed hard and because you guys protested against this. Now, Trump administration asked Supreme Court to roll back order halting deportation. We're going to be talking about that. My mother-in-law brought up Coachella and asked us to explain Palestine and change their views of Radlib. Let's go.
Now to Washington and the Trump administration's crackdown on immigration and the new challenge to the Supreme Court following a temporary pause on some deportations. ABC senior White House correspondent Selena Wang joins us with the latest. Selena, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Whit. This is a showdown between the White House and the Supreme Court, with the justices making their decision at rapid speed after the ACLU argued that the administration was trying to rush migrants onto plane and send them to a notorious prison in El Salvador without sufficient due process. This morning, the Trump administration now asking the Supreme Court to roll back its decision to block the deportation of a group of Venezuelan migrants being held at a detention center in Texas under the Alien Enemies Act, a centuries-old wartime law that provides little or no due process. That extraordinary order coming from the highest court shortly after midnight Saturday, just hours after the ACLU raced to file an emergency appeal. The ACLU's lead attorney telling me that migrants received this notice and were told they'd be removed in 12 to 24 hours. The notice says, under the Alien Enemies Act, you have been determined to be an alien enemy subject to apprehension, restraint, and removal from the United States.
We're talking about the administration hurrying people to the plane to send them to the Salvadoran prison without any due process whatsoever.
Among the migrants at that Texas detention center, Jose Gregorio Caldera Perez, seen in this video shared with ABC News, speaking to his girlfriend from the facility on Thursday before the court's ruling. He says there are a lot of us, and every minute more and more Venezuelans keep coming. The majority are Venezuelans. Another man in a jumpsuit seen holding up a piece of paper he says they allegedly have to sign and that they do not know where they might be going. ABC News has reached out to DHS for comment. The paper says Venezuela, but others say it's to El Salvador, so please help us. Caldera Perez's girlfriend telling us he said the paper is only in English and hard to understand, adding that he claims he and a group of detainees were taken to an airport near the facility on Friday and told they were about to be deported. Then he told her once they arrived, an officer informed the group they were being sent back to the center and would not board the plane. Overnight, Justices Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas releasing their dissent, calling the midnight order unprecedented and legally questionable relief. The Trump administration also arguing that the Supreme Court's block was premature and asking the justices to clarify that its order only stops them from deporting migrants under the Alien Enemies Act and not under other authorities. That's the same act invoked back in March to deport hundreds of Venezuelan migrants to the prison in El Salvador. Among them, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a father living in Maryland who was mistakenly sent back to his home country despite a court order barring the move.
He was traumatized by being at CCOT and fearful of many of the prisoners in other cell blocks.
The White House says they're confident they'll ultimately prevail against what they're calling meritless litigation. And it's also another busy week ahead for the Trump administration in the courts, with multiple hearings scheduled focused on the administration's use of the Alien Enemies Act. So in all of these legal cases, Janae, this legal battle is only beginning.
Certainly is. Selena Wang, thank you so much.
President Trump, who met with El Salvador's president this week, made it clear he does not intend to seek the return of Abrego Garcia to the United States. Deportation without due process is at the center of the Abrego Garcia case. The administration claims he is an MS-13 gang member, something his family and his attorneys deny. Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen flew to El Salvador himself to try to get a meeting with the man whose family, including his wife, an American citizen, is still in Maryland, pushing for his return. First, authorities refused, but late Thursday, Senator Van Hollen was able to sit down with Abrego Garcia, who was not in his jail garb and not in the hellish Secot prison, but instead in plain clothes at a nearby hotel. While President Trump accused Van Hollen of defending a violent gang member, the senator says the issue goes far beyond the case of Abrego Garcia.
If you deny the constitutional rights of one man, you threaten the constitutional rights and due process for everyone else in America.
And Senator Van Hollen joins me now. So you had this extraordinary trip to El Salvador. When you got there, you demanded or you asked to see Abrego Garcia. You were flatly denied, and then suddenly they brought him to see you. Explain what happened.
Well, you're right. I was denied by the vice president. I then the next day tried to drive to Secot prison, which is this notorious prison.
Yeah.
Soldiers waved me to the side of the road about 3 kilometers out. I said, "What are you doing?" They said they were gotten orders not to allow me to proceed.
Not even to get within miles of the...
Yeah, 3 kilometers. I asked them if they knew anything about the health of Abrego Garcia. They said they knew nothing about it. We had a number of press conferences in El Salvador pointing out that they were complicit in this illegal scheme with the Trump administration and pointing out that it's illegal under international law to prevent any communication with a prisoner.
Because his family hadn't heard from him, nobody had any contact for weeks.
That's right. This is a guy who was just abducted off the streets of Maryland, put in a couple airplanes, didn't know he was going to El Salvador, and ends up in the most notorious prison.
So how'd you end up meeting with him then? What happened?
I think at some point the president of El Salvador realized it was looking really bad to have this person who'd been...
I'm telling you, dude, this only happened because Van Hollen pressed hard and because you guys protested against this. Now, imagine if more Congress members would also demonstrate the same moral courage against the false deportation proceedings for people who have done nothing wrong, but simply said mean things about Israel, like simply wrote an article in the student newspaper about how Israel's doing a genocide, something that we all know is true, by the way. Like conservatives that kept crying over and over and over again about free speech in 1984 and how libtards want to ban the truth or whatever the fuck. I think that I truly think that the next stage in this is for bold leadership from Bernie Sanders. His own constituent was kidnapped in a similar scheme, the one that Hank Green is talking about here. Like, this has to happen. Similar things to what Van Hollen is doing has to take place with Rumeysa Öztürk, with Mosin, with Mahmoud, with all of the people that are being detained right now, because they participated in student protests against Israel's genocide. It's completely unacceptable. And seeing that this kind of action actually has, this kind of action still at this stage has a reaction from other parties involved, where people do actually back down a little bit and concede a little bit. All it takes is for some politicians to demonstrate bravery. It's right there for the taking.
Absconded from America, from the streets of Maryland, in one of their prisons and not able to communicate. So I ended up getting a call saying, "We will bring him to your hotel." And that's how we met.
So did you walk into a trap, though? I mean, they bring him to your hotel. He's in the civilian clothes, and you met with him. We saw the images. You put out the picture of meeting with him. The beginning of the meeting. You're sitting there. You're drinking water and talking to the guy in the hotel lobby, I assume. And then at some point they bring in these glasses that look like margarita glasses.
No, it wasn't a trap. My goal was to meet with him.
Yeah.
And make sure I could tell his wife and family he was okay. That was my goal. and I achieved that goal. You're absolutely right that the Salvadorian authorities tried to deceive people. They tried to make it look like he was in paradise. They actually wanted to have the meeting by the hotel pool originally.
Really?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We had to negotiate that. They wanted to put me right overlooking the pool. In fact, if you had a different angle on the camera shot, you would see the pool.
Because they did write, Bukele put out a statement saying, miraculously risen from the death camps and torture and sipping margaritas with you. Yeah. I mean, they were really trying to make you look like you were hanging out with somebody that they say is a gang member.
Look, this is a person who the United States courts have determined was illegally taken from the United States. And my whole purpose here is to make sure that we observe the rule of law, the Constitution, and due process rights. Bukele, yes, he tried to make it look like somehow this was, Abrego Garcia was enjoying himself. All of that was a setup, right? He had the waiters there. People ordered the waiters to bring these things that look like margaritas. Yeah. It just goes to show the lengths that Bukele and Trump will go to try to deceive people about what this case is all about. What this case is all about is simply complying with the Supreme Court order to facilitate his return and make sure he gets due process.
So what did Abrego Garcia tell you?
He told me about the trauma he had been experiencing, both in terms of the abduction and the fact that he was originally sent to CCOT, which is this notorious prison.
Yeah, we've seen the images.
He told me how much he missed his wife and his kids. He specifically mentioned his 5-year-old boy who has autism because that boy had been in the car with him when U.S. agents had stopped them and handcuffed him and then taken him away. So he described all that, and he told me that he had moved recently to a new prison facility. So those are some of the highlights.
I want you to listen to something that Gavin Newsom had to say about all the attention this case has gotten.
This is the distraction of the day, the art of distraction. This is the debate they want. This is their 80-20 issue as they've described it.
Is he right about the politics of this? I mean, the Republicans have taken great joy in portraying you as somebody who is defending somebody who's in this country illegally, they say is a gang member, and, you know, and they say that they're trying to just enforce the laws.
John, I don't think it's ever wrong to protect the Constitution and protect due process rights. I think conservative and libertarians, when they think about this case, the idea of somebody being deprived of their liberty and actually in a foreign prison without due process of law, that's something we should all fight for. I think what Americans are tired of is people who want to put their finger to the wind to see what's going on. And I would say that anyone that's not prepared to defend the constitutional rights of one man when they threaten the constitutional rights of all doesn't deserve to lead.
As you know, the president himself has been attacking you by pointing out some of the aspects of Abrego Garcia's record, including the fact that his wife had an order of protection against him in 2021 and alleged some pretty serious allegations of abuse, and even that they—
Oh my God. This, by the way, this is lending credence to the lines of attack created by the administration.
That he had detained her. Are you concerned about your defense of somebody? Obviously.
Sorry, what's the deal with them bringing Garcia and the senator wine glasses? Is that what you talked about regarding Republicans' messaging, grasping at straws right now? Or am I dumb because I really don't understand the supposed problem they're trying to manufacture? Yeah, it is. That they put like fake margarita glasses in front of them, which I don't even think had margarita in them, to make it seem like they were having a fun little outing, basically. It's something so simple and so stupid. It doesn't even change the dynamic at all, but it's because Republicans are so goddamn desperate that they're basically holding on to anything and everything they can. You only do this when you are when you've lost the argument, when you've lost control over the message and you're worried and you're doing anything and everything you can to basically fucking say, no, please don't look in this direction. They're bad. I promise you, they're bad.
Everybody in this country even those undocumented immigrants have rights, but are you concerned about standing so forcefully with somebody that has, you know, at least a questionable record?
I am not defending the man. I'm defending the rights of this man.
Wait, oh God, come on, Van Hollen. You should know by now that this is fucking bullshit, okay? It's bullshit. Just ask the easiest response to this is his wife called my office. His wife is my constituent. She's the one who wants his return. That's it. It's that simple. This is nothing but a distraction to try to post hoc rationalize this false deportation that should not have happened to begin with by this administration, led by wife abusers and drunk rapists. What are we talking about? It's so crazy.
To due process. And the Trump administration has admitted in court that he was wrongfully detained and wrongfully deported.
It's such a, this answer right here is kind of lame, I'll be honest. And I really like what Van Hollen has done so far, but there's still obviously like a limit to how hard he can go. But I think there's no reason to entertain it. There's not even any reason to entertain this whatsoever. You know what I mean? I think that his staffers should arm him better with better talking points on this issue. So now Hasanabi are completely ignoring the fact that his own wife got a protective order on him. Oh my God, this Native American lady is back. If this was a good man, I would get it. But why is there such a defense of non-Americans? I do not get it. Because the idea, first of all, you're in the fucking community of a person who came here when they were 18 years old, okay? You tune in live to a person who luckily has birthright citizenship as a consequence of being an anchor baby. But having said that, don't you think that I would have a different perspective, a different framework that I'm operating off of, and the notion that like anyone that comes here is automatically a bad person or automatically should not be on U.S. soil is a ridiculous statement to present to a person who very clearly wants and has no issue with migrants coming into this country? That's number one. Number two, I ask you this question, and I hope you can understand it. Okay, he came here legally. I'm from legal migration. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. First of all, he was legally present in the United States of America. He was literally a fucking union member as well. He had gainful employment. So you're wrong. He has a wife that is an American citizen. He has children that are American citizens. He was de facto legally on U.S. soil, especially after he got a court, an immigration court, to stop him from being deported to El Salvador, his nation of origin. Okay? That's number one. Number two, if you think, aside from the fact that he came here illegally, which is what you keep repeating. By the way, chatters, this is the lady from yesterday that we thought was a Fed, who's like, I'm a Native American who wants land back, but also will entertain the stupidest fucking white nativist anti-immigration arguments that the racist Republicans present. Okay? Very cool. Anyway, actually, it said that he crossed the border at 16. Wait, what? First of all, let me just explain something to you, okay? You know how natives will say no one is illegal on stolen land? I don't know if you've heard this statement before. I don't know if you've ever internalized it or if you ever thought about it, but I think it's a pretty valid assessment to make. Not only that, but also, this is only an issue if people that are coming in to the United States of America are actually causing issues, okay? Like real issues. That's it. This is the problem. At the heart of the problem lies a fucking severe sequence of lies that dumb fucks like you believe in. It has nothing to do with things the right way. Come on now. You are too stupid to understand that asylum applications are a legal and valid form. And in order to process an asylum application, you need to be inside of U.S. borders to begin with. Many of the people that you think are undocumented migrants or illegal aliens are simply applying for asylum. That's number one. Number two, this person already had a withholding of removal, which means that he was a He was legally on U.S. soil at that point, okay? I am for legal migration. No, you're not. You're a fucking idiot because you're literally talking about someone who had a right to be here at this point. He had a right to be here. It's dangerous to cross illegally. That's my stance. Why has he not gotten legal citizenship? Stop calling me stupid. What the fuck, whatever. Because you are stupid and you need to hear it over and over again. Do not call me names, dude. You are tripping. The very fact that I didn't ban you yesterday after you ate up an hour and a half of my time and everyone else's time in here because I tried to walk you personally through the steps piece by piece by also bringing it back to your own like personal association with your own identity, with your own culture as well, hoping that that would trigger something in you to recognize how silly you're being about this issue. And it seemingly didn't work. Means that I should be doing way more than just fucking calling your names. I should be banning you and moving on. Because I do not want to break the law, okay? I'm going to take two different steps here to explain something to you. One, there are a sequence of unjustifiable laws, okay? Completely ridiculous laws. For example, being Jewish was illegal in Nazi Germany. Would you say, don't break the law, don't be Jewish? No, you wouldn't. For example, freeing slaves was illegal at a certain point in this country. Would you say, don't fucking free slaves? What do you mean? The law's the law. That is an idiotic argument. Legality and morality are two separate concepts. You should be an adult and be able to figure out that there is a difference between the two, okay? And that one trumps over the other. That's number one. Number two, in this circumstance, and in many cases when people are talking about someone being an illegal alien, those people already have the proper documentation and the proper clearance from the government to be here, to work here. They're just simply saying that they're illegal aliens, okay? A withholding of removal to where your nation of origin is a higher standard to fucking clear than even an asylum application. It is a de facto legal allowance to be on U.S. soil unless you do something that is completely fucking heinous, okay?
My mission and my purpose is to make sure that we uphold the rule of law, because if we take it away from him, we do jeopardize it for everybody else. And I do want to point out, Carl, yes, the Trump administration is trying to change the story. They're trying to detract attention. Here's where they should put their facts. They should put it before the court. They should put up or shut up in court. Because Judge Zinnes, who's the district court judge in this case, said, and I quote, they put no evidence linking Abrego Garcia to MS-13 or to any other terrorist activity, unquote. She says that a couple times in her decision. So, Mr. President,
you're being wildly disrespectful of Chowder's opinion that people should be thrown into foreign concentration camps. I know.
And Republicans and anybody involved with this, take your facts to court. Don't put everything out on social media. As to his wife is the one who is asking us all to bring him home so his rights can be respected.
Okay, he came back around to that point, so I'm happy that he did.
And in fact, even if he is a gang member, that doesn't mean you don't have rights, due process rights.
Well, exactly. But again, the place to litigate that.
This is also good as well. This statement in and of itself is also one that should be repeated too. Like, even having gang associations is not automatically illegal. We're so far removed from that part of the conversation because the needle has so firmly planted in the fucking most reactionary position at this point, where everyone is trying to fight any battle they can at the edge, at the tip of the fucking spear at this point. Like, people are like, hey, can we get due process again, please? Meanwhile, we've forgotten like that there are 11 other steps even before this point that are also completely unconscionable and completely ridiculous.
Is in the courts, and they've not put the evidence before the judge in the case. So again, put up or shut up in court.
Let me ask you also, we heard from Tom Homan, which we'll be playing shortly. He was very critical of you, not surprisingly, and said, that he was alarmed that you would go to El Salvador to meet with an alleged gang member. He didn't say alleged, but a gang member. And when you have not taken a single visit to the border over the past 4 years or shown concerns about what was happening at the border.
What is this? Dude, what the fuck is going on? Is this on Fox News or ABC, man? Yeah, he's been living in Maryland with his U.S.-born wife and son after being provided protected legal status and legal work authorization in 2019. The protected status was granted after an immigration judge agreed with Abrego Garcia that his life was in danger if he was sent back to El Salvador. But this person still fucking does not get it. Whatever, have a nice day. I still think you're cute, but wow. Whenever people say there's a legal way to come into the country, they, one, completely refuse to recognize that his status in this country was legal de facto, okay? He was de facto legally in the country. He had a work authorization. And number two, the legal pathways of entry into the country in terms of getting immigration status are shut off to people like this. Okay? Nobody is fucking trekking 2,000 miles across treacherous terrain, braving the fucking elements, and coming in here for fun. Okay? They're not taking the hard route because they're all a bunch of fucking YouTubers and TikTokers who wanted to do the crossing the border challenge. Okay? They're doing this because the legal pathways are deliberately shut off to them. These are incredibly desperate people who don't want to do crimes, and that also is demonstrated by the criminality and the crime statistics of undocumented migrants in comparison to natural-born U.S. citizens. Undocumented migrants are responsible for lower crime per capita than U.S.-born citizens are by a wide margin. If legal pathways of citizenship or legal pathways of entry was allowed, was easily accessible, they would do it. Many of you have no idea how long it takes. Many of you have no idea how expensive it is. That is by design. That is specifically designed that way so that this country's capital owners can have a steady crop of expendable, disposable, permanent, underclass, non-legally protected migrant workers. That's it. That is the only reason. The currency exchange alone would already create an unfair dynamic without any sort of wage parity legislation for migrant workers as opposed to domestic U.S. workers. So even without that, there would already be a depressive factor in play here for people if they came in legally because of the fact that their material conditions are very different in their home countries. And they would come here and work for much lower prices than the U.S.-born domestic labor would work for. But we don't even want to do that. We want slavery with extra steps, pennies on the dollar, disposable people that we can work in our agriculture, the disposable people that we can work in our construction. It's completely fucking ridiculous. It is one of the most inhumane things that we do on a regular basis. It is by design. The cruelty is baked into the system. It's that simple. But perhaps it's not that simple for some of you to comprehend. Also, I saw this on my timeline. I'm going to show you a sequence of steps. Mike from PA apparently reposted this and said, Ethan Klein is afraid to leave his house for a haircut. And then this person reposted Mike from PA and said, Palestine still isn't free and in fact are in a worse position since Hassan put the spotlight on them. This person literally thinks that I am responsible for Israel's genocide of Palestinians because of my advocacy. What a fucking insane way to live your life, okay? Please. You have horse blinders on and you have no way of analyzing world events outside of this narrow scope of influencer fucking drama. To which one of you guys reposted and said, it's embarrassing when people admit to having a childlike understanding about the Palestinian plight that you insinuate that you, one, know more about who should be in the movement than actual Palestinians and people that have welcomed him. Two, think he can free Palestine already. very funny. Fucking pathetic. Let's get back to the El Salvador trip that Chris Van Hollen engaged in, and also this fucking ridiculous, this completely ridiculous line of questioning coming from ABC.
So I read
Your
that.
response.
I read that transcript.
Yep.
I don't have time to go through it all. He is lying through his teeth on many places in that record, and I have been actually fighting MS-13 probably longer than Donald Trump ever uttered the name MS-13 for 20 years in this region. I helped stand up the anti-gang task force. But the idea that you can't defend people's rights under the Constitution and fight MS-13 and gang violence is a very dangerous idea. That's the idea the president wants to put out. That's why they're spreading all these lies. Take your information to the court, because you clearly have not done that, and respect this person's constitutional rights and follow the order of the Supreme Court, which they're defying as we speak.
All right, Senator Van Hollen, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, John.
And joining me now is Republican Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana. Senator Kennedy, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. Let's start off with this case of Mr. Abrego Garcia. You heard my conversation with Senator Van Hollen. The Justice Department called the deportation of Mr. Abrego Garcia a, quote, administrative error. The Supreme Court has ordered the government to facilitate Mr. Abrego Garcia's return. Should Mr. Abrego Garcia be returned to the United States, Senator?
Well, Chris is my friend, and I respect him, and he's certainly entitled to his opinion, but in my judgment, he is utterly and gloriously wrong. I mean, most of this gauzy rhetoric is just rage bait. Unless you're next level obtuse, you know that Mr. Garcia is never coming back to the United States, ever. And that's not because of President Trump. That's because of Mr. President Bukele. He said up front in the Oval Office that he was not going to return Mr. Garcia. No federal judge, even Jay Wilkinson, has authority over a sovereign country. Besides that, it should not go unnoticed that...
Oh, yeah? The American government has no power to tell the country that we are using as a fucking slave labor colony to return people that have been deported there falsely. That's an interesting statement from a Rhodes Scholar, by the way. All this fucking foghorn leghorn bullshit is simply an act, for those of you who don't know. President Bukele, Rhodes Scholar, chat. These senators think Americans are dumb idiots. I mean, a lot of Americans are dumb idiots. Let's be real. But yeah, the notion that we cannot demand the return of people that we have falsely deported to a country is ridiculous. We have done so. We have done it successfully in the past, as a matter of fact. So when he says this, he's just hoping that you don't know that that is the case. I wonder if the journalist in question here will actually, I wonder if the journalist in question here will turn around and repeat, will turn around and say that's not true.
Mr. Bukele is much closer to President Xi in China than he is to President Trump. Xi is spending billions of dollars to build infrastructure in El Salvador, and I wouldn't be surprised if they've discussed this case. The final point I would make, whether you agree with it or not, is Bukele hates MS-13. And Mr. Garcia, allegedly, is a member of MS-13. The other point I would make is that Chris says Mr. Garcia has had no due process. He's been in front of 17 judges, some of them twice. Probably $5 million worth of legal fees, and he hadn't had to pay a dime. Final point I'd make, look, this was a screw-up, in my opinion. The administration won't admit it, but this was a screw up. Mr. Garcia was not supposed to be sent to El Salvador. He was sent to El Salvador. The Democrats saying, look, you know, we told you Trump is a threat to democracy. This is going to happen every other Thursday afternoon. I don't see any pattern here. I mean, you know, someday
90% of people that were sent to the Seekoff facility thus far have no criminal background. None whatsoever. And have been shipped there to the slave labor colony exclusively because some fucking dipshit ICE agent knew that they were easy pickings. In order to make it seem like there is a mass mobilization happening against all migrants, they're going after the ones that have basically told the government exactly where they're at. That's why they're going after fucking student visa recipients and demanding that college campuses reveal any kind of misconduct that their foreign students have engaged in. Because they want to pad the fucking stats. Because lo and behold, and this might come as a surprise, the previous administration, regardless of what Trump said, and every administration, as a matter of fact, has, of course, criminally prosecuted migrants when they do crimes. Contrary to what the Trump administration was claiming before the election. That's the reason why they can't find these rugged, crazy criminals and are simply trying to deport whoever the fuck they can.